Hello? Hey, Darren. I'm going to try to turn my phone up. Alright, it's up. Go ahead. Are you there?
I am. I just switched on my Bluetooth. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what's going on with you? Where are you these days?
I'm in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm, trying to get close enough to Colorado that I can still fight my case.
Uh-huh.
You know that,
What,
go ahead.
what case do you still have open?
All of them. They're all interconnected. That's the issue. It's that, a lot of the stuff that happened in these cases, they told me that none of the evidence that I have is allowed because it's all out of jurisdiction, even the stuff that's in jurisdiction. They prevented me from speaking in court. My public pretenders did everything they could to pretend that they were sick or got into car accidents or all sorts of twisted stuff in order to prevent me from being able to show evidence. So the fact that they were able to introduce evidence that was not only hearsay, it wasn't actually even hearsay. It was outright lies that are easy to show in court that they're lies. But as far as that goes, this stuff that these other people, the volunteer side and the police side, were allowed to show was all out of jurisdiction. Nearly every bit of it that was used to prevent me from speaking in court, the judges all already had a set bias and a set agenda when I went into every court date. And that's a major issue that I'm dealing with. But also, that feller in Boulder who had the police pull their guns on him and do all that kind of stuff, you and I know damn well that if that feller hadn't been confused with a homeless person, that never would have happened.
I don't know that, Sean. I mean, there's every possibility that's what happened, but he's also black, and there is racial bias in the police. So,
You're absolutely right about that. But it's also the fact that because he has a house, people actually care. Had he been a black homeless person, people wouldn't care. That stuff has happened in front of me to black people in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, we make fun of the fact that the Boulder police harass black people more often than white people when it comes to the homeless. We call it black in Boulder is the charge.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that that racial bias doesn't happen. It's the fact that, well, all right, there's a lot of stuff with this dude's case that's pretty messed up. Like, when it happens to a homeless person, there isn't this big media frenzy, you know? If it's a black homeless person, there's no media frenzy. And the Boulder police do this all the time, not just to black homeless people, but also white homeless people. And
Yeah, I've filmed them, Sean. I know.
yes, sir.
So, I haven't even done it that much. I just happen to, occasionally I'm walking downtown and I see something, I start filming, and it turns out to be horrible, where I read something in emails that people are getting harassed at a certain location, and I've gone there, and sure enough, there's Keith Steinman fucking with people, so I film it. So I'm aware, and I know how frustrating it is to have it just keep going on even when we catch them. Sometimes it's bad enough to get published in, and they people pretend they care, and other times.
That's the key word, pretend. You care. That's something that's important. I've been hoping and praying you become a lawyer because I know what it is that you're trying to do. I mean, but there's also a lot of people who they're really scared to come forward. And I've been getting their words, but I haven't been able to get any media outlet to even care. They keep using well, you have protection orders against you, so you must be wrong. They don't even bother to listen to the part where I wasn't allowed to go to court. I was assaulted and charged with assault to prevent me from being able to go. And a lot of the cases that we have, like that feller in Boulder who had all those officers pull their guns on him, that's something it's horrible. But it's also not the only time. Like Boulder County is a predominantly white, rich neighborhood. The college kids go down and they beat homeless people. Like Ogre, when he got beaten over the head by 6 college kids with a rock, the police wouldn't even take a report. And it didn't take me and Ogre but maybe 30 minutes of looking on the internet to find out who these guys were. The police didn't care. They turn a blind eye to homelessness, and that that feller, there's some questions that I have that really piqued my mind, like why didn't he put down the claw? But there's also the fact that it is an implement, and he was, doing his job. But then there's also the fact that so many homeless people have been harassed, threatened, intimidated, and even assaulted for picking up garbage. You know that guy John who walks around with a bucket and a grabber?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing that for 20 something years. They gave him a ticket for that and he quit. They gave him a ticket for littering for picking it up. And then Victor King, he sat down on a park bench over by the library. This is before he got arrested for stealing a backpack and a computer, and they gave him a job. They wanted him to clean up a grape stain.
What was he arrested for?
He stole a backpack that had a computer in it, and they actually had me sit down next to Victor and tried accusing me of having the backpack. And Victor he's not gonna let somebody innocent go down for something. So he spoke up and fessed up to it. But that's not the first time, and he's a black man. That's not the first time they did something like that to him. What?
Yeah, I was saying, I know Victor.
Yeah, a lot of people know Victor. He even when he was strung out, he was decent to the homeless people. He was always happy and smiley, and he really turned his life around and cleaned it up. But like he had to commit a crime for them to help him.
Right.
And there's a lot of us out there that we're not out there committing crimes, and we get stuff on our record because the public pretenders won't even do their job. And I've got it saved, at least 50 people who that's happened to, but getting somebody to look at it's impossible.
It's pretty hard, Sean. Your situation is really, I think, with multiple cases, multiple attorneys, and multiple jurisdictions, I think it's really probably overwhelming for a lot of attorneys. And I can't. I mean, I wish I had someone I could direct you to, but I've told you the people I can, and they obviously haven't helped. And if I pass the bar, get through all the hoops I have to get through, it won't be until October or something that I can do anything. And then I got to figure out how I'm going to pay to doing it. No one wants to pay me to, at least that I found yet, no one wants to pay me to do this stuff, so I'm going to have to figure out how to earn money myself and keep my home and my daughter alive and thriving. But that is all to say, I'm a ways out from being able to do anything to even begin to look at your case. And I don't have anyone else, but I'm on the phone with you because I care. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good, Darren. You remember before all that happened when we were trying to get homeless people to do the video thing? Those very same.
I ended up doing one with that. She's now in Hawaii, I guess. I don't know how that happened, but she is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've been in contact with Kelly. She was gonna do one as well. Now that she's got a roof over her head, she is in a better position to do that now. She said that if if she had a place where she could sit and smoke cigarettes, because she gets a lot of anxiety talking about this stuff, that she'd be able to do that. I got a whole list of other people who are ready and willing. They need a place to do it, and that's always been the issue. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happened, and nearly everywhere that I went, because I was speaking out against the police. The police ultimately did everything that they could to pretend that they were going to take my report. In every single situation, they actually pretended like they were going to take my report. And ultimately, when I had a meltdown in the hospitals, every single time, it's because when I, was promised that they were going to, and then ultimately they did everything in their power to make sure that I couldn't. As far as this feller who, because he's black, a lot of people are paying attention to it, and a lot of black people are out there marching and so on and so forth, and that's good and fine and dandy, but there's a lot of people like Victor King that happened to when he was homeless, and nobody cared. Also, there's a feller. Do what?
If I may say, Sean, that it kind of doesn't matter what's come before. It matters. I mean, it does, but I think the important thing to focus on with this situation is it has caught public attention. No matter how many people missed it right under their nose before, it's under their nose now, and they're paying attention. And I don't know if you caught this, but the city manager yesterday basically conceded to all of our demands to get a community oversight panel. The task force to investigate the best oversight panel model is going to be built up community members. Hopefully, I'll be on that. It's going to be 50% people of color and LGBTQ and homeless people. That's right in the task force suggestion that she put out. So it's regardless of how we got here and how long we didn't do the right thing, in this moment, for the first time in my entire, I'll call it advocacy, activist career, 7 years of trying, this is the first time I've gotten exactly, with the people I'm working with, it's not just me, but it's the first time I've gotten exactly what I asked for. And
Yes, sir.
the community police oversight panel could hear complaints from people who are homeless. It's a huge, huge sea change if we get it done right, which normally task forces and such are a good way to delay and do nothing, but that's not what we're going to do. We need time. We need the time to really do it right, and there's really good people ready to do it if we can get on that task force. That's the next challenge. But this guy's age getting guns drawn on him. Yeah, he's not the first. He's lucky he didn't get shot. He wouldn't have been the
That's
first
true.
for that either.
Well, there's other names of, like I said, other black people that this has happened to. It, and the reason I'm bringing it up, I'm not trying to deter or take away from this man's case. I'm trying to say that there are other black people this has happened to, and it's not just in Boulder. I mean, there's other parts of Boulder County that this is happening to. Brian Townsend is dealing with it. Mark Swanigan has dealt with it. Darrell, he's had to deal with it. I mean, there's a lot of people that, because this is a case that's forward, we can show that this is a recurring and ongoing situation. And I know a lot of people of color that they've done these things to. So I mean, it's not like, because like you said, for 7 years you've been trying to do something. With me, I've been doing it for 10 years. So I've also had to do it on my Facebook, because I'm not going to let this stuff go unreported. I reported it on my Facebook. And the reason that the Boulder police went at me the way they did is because, for the first time ever, instead of 6 people looking at a post, it ended up being thousands of people looking at posts. And they did everything that they could to try to destroy evidence of me reporting on this, trying to advocate for the homeless and being an activist. And as far as a lot of the other places go, like, I was targeted because I'm an activist. I was targeted by the Boulder police with them already knowing since January 1st when they came and harassed me at Starbucks and separated me from, do you know Corbin Bailey? His name's Corbin Bailey.
I don't think so.
Alright, well, he was gonna help me out on the 1st, show me how to take screenshots, which, we were actually separated by the Boulder police, but they kept on doing that for 5 days straight. I got hit so many times in the head in that 5 days and had so many homeless people beating each other up over whether or not I did it, that it really, really presented a major issue for me to go to anywhere that was, number one, public, or number two, anywhere with homeless people, because I was so well known in the homeless community. Passing out blankets for 7 years, trying to get people's stories. I mean, the 4 situations with Ogre and the way that the system completely screwed him, charging him so much money, it was literally impossible for him to keep his job and go to all of their appointments and pay all of their money, and he ultimately lost his daughter over that. And, the whole thing with Nancy Stopka, is that her name? The one who had the blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids that were taken? She's one of over a dozen that I have documented of the Boulder police doing exactly that, working to try to get basically children sold to rich families in Boulder. Ogre got lucky. His parents are the type that they blame Ogre, like he chose all of the stuff that happened to him. But that's because they never had to deal with that. But they were able to, luckily, they were able to get the state to allow them to take the kids, because they thought that with Ogre, they could just take his daughter and nobody would care. Like with a lot of these cases. With Nancy, like, I've been in contact. Do what?
Did Ogre's parents take his daughter?
Yes, they came to the courts in Colorado, had a little bit of money, and basically took her down to Florida. But that's one of the cases, one of the few cases where the people were lucky that they had family that actually came through for them, because I mean, some of these girls, the the brokering fee, the younger they are, the more money it is. I mean, some of these children can get up to $1.5 million if it's a female under the age of 6 with blonde hair and blue eyes. The younger they are, the more money they're worth. And rich families in Boulder are real fond of buying those children. That's the highest on their shopping list.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been reporting on all of this for years. It's not just the fact that I've been reporting on it, it's the fact that I'm well educated and well versed in it. I mean, I've got a lot of firsthand experience, not only in helping these families who are being victimized by the state of Colorado, but I have their stories, and their stories are actually on my Facebook for going back to 2012. So what the Boulder police did was basically try to cover their own backsides by painting me as a violent person, and that really made things difficult not only for myself, but also for the Bollinger family. I mean, the Bollinger side of the family, I don't really have a lot of remorse for. The things that they've done in these groups and the shaming of people for trying to listen and things like that it's just phenomenally disgusting. But the Kelly side, Natalie's mother's side, they really didn't need to deal with all of this. Her mother literally has not done anything wrong. She did some things that are immoral to some degree, but I mean, given the situation, it's understandable. What the rest of the family did was something that the police needed to look at. These people were harassing me and threatening me and assaulting me, and every time I tried to go in to make a report, they'd assault me because there's what happened with the Boulder police. And I was informed that my arrest record does say that I assaulted a police officer, which is why officers are so standoffish with me. And they've done everything that they can to prevent me from making a report. They kept on telling me that I had to go to the county in order to make a report. So, I mean, I'm having difficulties getting people to understand I don't have the money or resources to get to these counties, especially with all the court dates that I was going to. I had over 40 court dates last year. Yeah. And that's, I didn't get into trouble before that. I mean, there was one situation where I bought a computer and my public pretender wouldn't do anything. But, I mean, most of us homeless call them public pretenders for a reason. Um, they send us into panic attacks. They let us sit in jail. And that's why, like places like Arapahoe County, for example, they have a 97%, over a 97% rate of plea deals. And the reason for that is because the lawyers aren't going to do their jobs. They're just too many homeless people that they do this to and not enough lawyers. Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm walking towards my home and there's some noise around the corner and it's cutting out a tiny bit.
All right. But go ahead, what were you saying?
I will have to stop in a minute. But, the public offenders that I know, I've watched them work. It sucks. They walk into court, they have 40 people they're supposed to represent that day. There's no way they are able to do any sort of research for 40 people. They might have a couple of cases that they're able to dig in on, but it's systemic. It's not that they're bad people. It's that they're in a situation where they're set up to fail.
Yep. And they have to make plea deals with the district attorneys and the prosecutors, and they have to pick and choose which ones that they're going to really represent. A lot of times, at least two of the public pretenders that I had, they told me, we really try to focus on the single mothers, because, I mean, these are the ones who, single mothers in houses, because they're low income, so they need the help, but also, the kids do need to come first. And a lot of the public pretenders that I had, the reason that I was able or willing to deal with the crap that they were unwilling to do is because I knew that there were children at stake in other cases. But then when they're trading cases like baseball cards over who's going to be guilty and who's going to be just dropped, that is systemic. You're right.
I don't hear you right now.
That's all right. I heard something in the background too. I said, as far as when they're having to trade cases like baseball cards, the prosecutor will say, all right, well, we'll let you have a plea deal on this or drop the charges on this if you'll give us these 4 homeless people. And 2 of my attorneys actually outright told me that that's what they were doing. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, they're aware that I'm highly intelligent, and they're aware that the cases that I was in, that the police were not going to allow evidence in my cases. But they also did a lot of stuff that I wanted to ask you about some things. When Brian Valenzuela stole my backpack, go ahead. Sorry.
You're going in and out so much I can't understand you.
All right.
Have you moved?
Yeah, I was smoking a cigarette, so I took my face away from the phone, so you didn't hear me go. Anyway, there's the fact that Brian Valenzuela, in my Arapahoe case, he actually came and took a backpack that was full of evidence that I was trying to show. That's the whole reason that I threatened the life of the President of the United States. But they used a lot of stuff that was outright lies to prevent me from getting a PR bond. And my attorney in that case told me that the magistrate was a rubber stamp for the prosecution. But they told me that I had 35 days, and after that 35 days, they had to drop the case if I hadn't been, to be allowed what's the thing that you have where they have to present a case, but before you take it to trial?
Either pre-trial hearing, pre-trial conference.
Yep.
Like that.
Yes, sir. That was it. They said that if they don't do that within 35 days, that they have to drop my case. Well, it ended up being almost 40 days, and my public pretender was not present at the courthouse. She didn't show up. And they gave me another public pretender who said, I haven't been able to review your case. You can either sign this piece of paper saying that it's all right to proceed without having this hearing, or we have to have it today, and I can't do anything because I don't have any evidence. And they had outright refused to get that evidence from Brian Valenzuela. Those attorneys knew that I was being assaulted in the jail. They knew that I was being psychologically and physically tortured in the jail. And they did absolutely nothing. I ultimately ended up having failure to appear in multiple court cases and also was prevented from going to court.
You're speaking away from the phone again, but I can't hear you.
It kind of sounds like somebody's rustling a plastic bag.
That is what I'm doing. I just making touch.
All right. Yeah, well, I'll just try to speak louder. But the whole situation was my public pretenders wouldn't even bother to look at the evidence in that backpack. I took it everywhere with me. And I do have severe panic attacks, and they basically did everything they could to send me into a panic attack and make sure that I stayed in the situation that I was in order to get me to enter into a plea deal. And they ultimately, the one in that case, Pamela Carty, lied to me outright on multiple occasions and also blindsided me right before court with a lot of stuff. The difference between Pamela Carty and my other public pretenders is that all of the public pretenders did the same thing with not showing up to court or making appointments that they didn't show up to, or they wanted me to meet their investigator who never showed up. And each time it cost me a lot of money. With Pamela Carty, I was in the jail, so I mean, it didn't cost me any money to go there. But because I was locked up so long, they took away my disability, and I didn't have an address to go to. They also were able to illegally obtain protection orders by preventing me from going to those court cases and court dates. The way that they served me with the protection orders was also illegal. I was assaulted in the Longmont Hospital, and forced mind-altering and dangerous drugs were injected into me because I was supposed to be making a police report. They told me I could make one when I got to the Longmont Hospital, and then all of the police officers left. And then they came back when I was like, you know what, the police need to come back and take my report. And when they came back, they ultimately instead assaulted me and injected me with drugs. And I was so scared I actually had to put my foot in the stirrup on the hospital bed so that I didn't kick the officer who was down at the foot of the bed. You know, I locked my foot into it so that my natural reaction of fight or flight wouldn't kick in. They pulled the same exact thing that they pulled at the Boulder Hospital in January. They did that on multiple occasions last year. That's because officers refused to document what was going on. They refused to document the threats against me before Natalie was killed. They refused to listen to me at all, and that was in both Nebraska and Colorado, and it was internet harassment. Meanwhile, they prevented me from going to court so that I couldn't show this. And there's members of her family that were also involved in this. They were sending other people after me, and I have evidence that shows that these people that were threatening my life are friends with the Bollingers, were with Bollingers when they did these things. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that they just pulled a lot of really shady stuff by not wearing body cameras. So, all of these situations, I've been informed that police protocol is to record all of it, yet none of those body cameras came forward. None of those recordings came forward. All of my public pretenders told me that those recordings don't exist. And for me being stuck in public, you know, I can't talk about this stuff in Starbucks. And I need to make a lot of different phone calls that I just can't make from my Jeep, especially since I have to go through a lot of evidence. And so much has been lost. I mean, every jail that I went to, they somehow magically lost important information. And, like,
well, it's not going to be easy. not even going to be close to easy. Are you facing any jail time in any of these court cases at this moment?
I am. I've got warrants out for my arrest, at least 2 warrants, but I also broke my protection orders because the protection orders are illegal. If the law is unjust, it is not just my right, it's my duty to break it. So since these people keep sending people to harass me, and they are still harassing me, I literally have had people this week even threaten me and harass me over it and give false accusations and false statements. These Natalie Bollinger groups, I mean, if you look back in them, it's a whole bunch of slander that is the reason that I'm being assaulted. Meanwhile, this whole child molester crap, like, Natalie was not a child. She was a legal adult when me and her became friends. Before that, I knew who she was because she was selling drugs down there for her dad. And getting the media to take a look at it, I mean, it's like pulling teeth, you know. There's a lady named Jennifer Dujowski, and her and the other guy for, what's that one in California? Sword and Scale. They basically... That's all right. Sword and Scale, the 2 media outlets that were actually willing to take my statement, they both lied outright. One of them is Jennifer Dujowski, who I spoke out about, and now she's saying that she wants to help. I don't trust her because she didn't help before, and also because she never bothered to contact any of my witnesses. But, I mean, it's something where now she has the list of witnesses again, and she still hasn't done anything. A lot of the people who were willing to come forward are afraid to do so, and I also have that documented. Like Christine, she did some really shady stuff to me because she's afraid of police retaliation in Boulder. I do have probably 100 different screenshots of, or 100 different posts about officers like Steinman, not just from myself, but also from other homeless people that I've been trying to collect all of this evidence, but my computer gets full, and then I have to find a way to take evidence off of my computer so there's room for more evidence. I mean, literally, there could be hundreds, maybe even thousands of cases against the police in Colorado just off the information I've collected.
Yeah, well, there's always, every day, unfortunately, there's pretty much more stuff happens to people that shouldn't happen.
Well, I'm gonna, I guess, let you go so you can get back to doing your business. But is there a time that we could have a conference about that? Because I'd really like to help out this feller who had the police pull guns on him, and to show that Boulder has a history of doing this to black people.
Well, we can talk again. I'm super busy till about mid-April. I can occasionally just have a phone call, but right now I'm trying to not do basically anything with anybody until mid-April.
Yeah, Kelly told me your plate was pretty full. Kelly told me your plate was pretty full. I wanted to ask you one more thing. You remember when you took pictures of the bruising and the cuts on my wrist from the handcuffs? Do you remember what day that was?
I don't, but I can go find it. The date is on my phone.
All right.
With the picture.
That is badass, and thank you for that, Darren.
You want me to look that up for you and send it to you? The date? Yes,
sir. They keep wanting names and dates, and most of these people, it's been so long, they can't remember names or dates. And they're kind of too lazy to go back and look through the search history, or it's the homeless people in a lot of cases, so they don't have a search history. They lost their telephones, which happens frequently. They prey on that. That's why they try to draw things out for so long.
Yeah.
Just don't look at the evidence till it gets lost or stolen. All right. Well,
how do you want me to send it the date to you? You want it?
Just text message me. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, take care, Sean. We'll catch up with you.
Alright, thank you, Darren. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. God, I'm so glad when people hang up. This thing doesn't want to hang up a lot of times. It's a piece of shit phone. It was the cheapest one that they had at Walmart at the time for as far as smartphones go. I learned how to do a lot of things since Natalie died. A lot of things that if I'd have known how to do before Natalie died, we could have headed all of this off a long time ago. I asked for help, and people just didn't have the time. They couldn't make the time, and all of them it's because they had families. With me, my family just made excuses. It's always been my fault. I'm the black sheep of the family. That's because I'm the honest one. Imagine that. Y'all be safe. Look out for each other. Nobody else is gonna. If you don't take the initiative, who's gonna take the initiative for you?